1995, what a time to be alive for fans of Star Trek. I was 10 when Voyager first started airing, and honestly, until I looked it up to write this, I would have sworn that the first season of Voyager overlapped with the last season of The Next Generation, giving us the only time when there are 3 Trek series airing at the exact same time. What do you mean I now live in a time when there's 4 Trek series on at the same time? Screw 2 of those shameless cash grabs. I'll let you pick which 2 you think I'm talking about. Regardless, The Next Generation ended, and 6 months later, Voyager started up. It's weird to say this considering Deep Space Nine got rid of the starship and took place almost entirely on a space station, but Voyager was the biggest tonal leap we ever had in Star Trek so far. Sure, TNG suffered at the first, with everyone taking themselves way too seriously, but all Trek up to Voyager felt somewhat grounded in reality. Like, all this futuristic tech could totally exist and the reasons sound plausible. Voyager was a huge shift towards fantasy and made up quantum problems and solutions. But man, I love Voyager. It was the first Trek series I owned on VHS, and have watched it a ton. So I figured, why not share the love? I'm going to go episode by episode over the stuff I want to talk about. Let's go! Holy text crawl, Batman. I don't know what they were thinking starting DS9 and Voyager this way, but I'm glad they never did this again. TV shows were weird back at this time, and the first season of DS9 and Voyager both aired in January as a short 16 or 20 episode long season. This meant that Voyager aired in the middle of season 3 of DS9. Using the Maquis was a great idea. The last time we saw the Maquis, Thomas Riker had stolen the Defiant and made out with Kira. This has got to be the slowest battle in all of Trek.
We need more power if we're going to make it to the Badlands.
Take the weapons offline.
What on earth is a black Vulcan? We'll talk about that later.
I can't get any more out of it.
Be creative.
How am I supposed to be creative with a 39-year-old rebuilt engine?
Hey, look at that. In a few seconds, I learned B'Elanna is a good engineer without them having to have everyone spend several minutes gushing about how amazing she is. There are some new Trek shows I could learn a lot from that.
Maquis ship. This is Gully Vec of the Cardassian Fourth Order.
Gulivec? Gulivec? Yeah, okay, I missed the name the first time around, but this is actually the same Cardassian who appeared in the TNG episode Journey's End, where he tells Picard that 2 of his 3 sons died in the Federation Cardassian War, and he didn't want to lose the last son. I can see him making it his life mission to end the threat to the peace that existed between the Cardassians and the Federation.
We can use the time to make some repairs. What was that?
Curious. We've just passed through some kind of coherent tetryon beam.
Yeah, coherent tetryon beam. This is exactly what I meant by Trek becoming more fantasy. I know it was referenced in both TNG and DS9, but 2 minutes in and they're already pulling fantasy cards like this. It set a pattern.
At current speeds, it will intercept us in less than 30 seconds.
I always thought the graphic on the screen here showing the displacement wave that carried them to the Delta Quadrant looked just like the Soliton wave in the TNG episode New Ground. It allowed for warp without warp drive. Well, for a while anyway. The test ship did blow up. Still, I can see a race of aliens more advanced than our own working it out more fully. It beats up the ship, but it doesn't blow up. This is my favorite theme in all of Trek. Maybe that's because I play the trombone and this piece was made for trombones, but it really sets the emotional tone for the series. Voyager traveling all by itself, the grandiose trombones contrasted against the flight of the violins as Voyager passes through the nebula. Voyager is all by itself in a huge universe full of wonder, and it's going to relish exploring every last bit of it. The whole score builds up energy, throwing in trumpets, crashing cymbals, the booming kettle drums, and then ends it with Voyager going to warp and those last 6 notes, with the last one held out. Yeah, this is going to be a long, hard voyage, but it's not going to be hopeless. They nailed this intro. They show the angle monitor to hammer in that this is a penal colony, but their communication badges do the exact same thing by keeping constant tracking of them that can be used by anyone on the ship to find out your exact location at any moment, so it's really not that worse off than anyone else in Starfleet.
Tom Paris?
That's weird. Janeway called Nicholas Lucano Tom Paris. We'll talk more about that later. Kate Mulgrew spent so much of the early shows with her hands on her hips that they actually make a joke about this in a later episode.
Your father taught me a great deal. I was his science officer during the Arias expedition.
You must be good. My father only accepts the best and the brightest.
Alright, Voyager, I'll let that one pass, since Tom isn't directly praising Janeway to tell us how great she is, but is only referencing a character trait of his father's. But you better watch it. You're a TV show. Show me character traits, don't just tell me about them.
I've never seen a Federation starship that could maneuver through the plasma storms.
This is a weird comment since we've seen the Defiance in the Badlands at this point. But I guess Tom was incarcerated by the time the Defiant was rolled out.
My chief of security was on board, undercover. He was supposed to report in twice during the last 6 days. He didn't.
Maybe it's just your chief of security who's disappeared.
Maybe.
This is a great exchange. Tom is trying to be confrontational, saying that maybe Tuvok is a traitor, and you can tell that Janeway categorically rejects this on an emotional level, while also admitting it's a possibility on an intellectual level.
Officially, you'd be a Starfleet observer during the mission.
Observer? Oh, hell, I'm the best pilot you could have.
Alright, take note, Trek writers. This is called foreshadowing. It's something you get to do when you actually flesh out your characters. Tom and Janeway both know he's a great pilot from the get-go. They didn't have to paste that into his character bio in the 3rd season when they suddenly needed a pilot.
Stoddy, you're changing my mind about Betazoids.
Good.
Oh, that wasn't a compliment. Until today, I always considered your people warm and sensual.
Tom is coming off a bit creepy with this unwanted flirtation here, but from what we see of him later in the series, I'm convinced that he wasn't being a creep. He knew how people viewed him, and he resigned himself to that role. It says a lot when Voyager comes into frame that it has his full attention. Tom is a pilot through and through.
15 decks, crew complement of 141.
Wow, bold move to tell us exactly how many people they had. I'm sure they'll be 100% faithful to stick to this number.
Bioneural circuitry.
Hey, I know a guy who did a video about how bioneural circuitry could have helped out Voyager when compared to the Galaxy class of ships. Having Voyager depart from DS9 was a nice way to link the series together in the universe, and made a lot of sense since DS9 had shown the Badlands previously. That shuttle must be huge! One of my gripes across all of Trek is how they never get the proportions correct, since the real scale would make the shots look dull.
If I may say so, it's been my special pleasure to see many new officers like yourself come through these portholes.
This scene made Quark and Moore two of a handful of characters that I know of that appeared in TNG, DS9, and Voyager. In fact, they might be the only 2 characters who appear in all 3 as the same character. Actually, it was pointed out that I literally mentioned Gallivek earlier in this video, and it made me realize that Q counts along with Kang. Riker and Troy count as well, I guess, if you count Picard.
I'm really not interested.
Interested?
You were about to try to sell me something, right? We were warned about the Ferengi at the Academy.
Slurs about my people at Starfleet Academy.
But what I meant was...
Well, somebody's going to hear about this.
You know, I think a memento for my parents would be a great idea. What are these? Would make a great pendant for my mother.
Or cufflinks for your father.
Garrett Wang is a treasure and a true fan. This is the perfect introduction to his character as a naive optimist who thinks he knows more about the ropes than he actually does. But I just can't believe that he's an ensign fresh from the academy. He's 25 or 26 in real life and lacks that baby-faced look of someone who just graduated college. I know it's nitpicky, but I think they should have made him a lieutenant junior grade and been done with it.
Thanks.
Didn't they warn you about Ferengi at the Academy?
Alright, people in the comments section, who had the best bromance in Star Trek? Harry and Tom, Miles and Bashir, or Spock and McCoy?
Can I help you?
Tom Paris reporting on board.
Oh, yes. The Observer.
Oh wow, the Doctor really hates Tom for some reason. I really look forward to seeing that developed over the series.
What was that all about?
It's a long story, Harry, and I'm tired of telling it.
A long story, is it? I bet we never hear that kind of lazy writing in the series ever again. What monstrosity is that? Janeway is drinking coffee with milk or creamer?
Is this another love me, love my dog demand?
Yes.
Well, I guess we know who wears the pants in this relationship. Okay, all kidding aside, we get to see or hear about 4 people's relationships prior to being lost in the Delta Quadrant in this episode. We see Tom in prison, we hear about Tuvok's family, we hear that Harry's mom called Janeway about his clarinet,
Or cufflinks for your father.
and we see this relationship with Mark. We know they all had to have some kind of relationship that was left behind, but I think it was more impactful to limit it to just a few characters. Also, did her hair color change? I guess she dyed her hair after visiting Tom.
Ensign, despite Starfleet protocol, I don't like being addressed as sir.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Ma'am is acceptable in a crunch.
Yeah, girl power! Okay, we might as well get this over with. Allegedly, the producers or writers got death threats for making the captain a girl. I believe it, but I don't think it was as much as they claimed. I may have been young, but I was alive at the time, and I listened a lot. Very few people cared that Janeway was a girl. Star Trek has always been full of powerful women, be it T'Pau from Amok Time, to Admiral Nietzsche in Chain of Command, or Kira in Dax in DS9, or Admiral Nora of Drumhead. Your standard Trekkie didn't care. You know what they did care about? This guy right here. People were losing their minds about a black Vulcan. Not because they were racist, well, maybe not all of them, but because up until this point, every alien race was a single color. All Andorians, blue. Klingons, brown. Betazeds, white. To this day, I bet there are people out there that think a black Vulcan makes no sense. But I'm really glad they cast Tim Russ for this role because he nails it.
Ensign Kim, Mr. Paris.
Welcome aboard.
Oh, Wow, the first officer really hates Tom for some reason. I really look forward to seeing that developed over the series. Crap, it's a female Vulcan. Based on a Pon farr episode later on, I know for a fact that she's not going to make it. Or maybe she had a thing against black Vulcans. I don't know, I'm not here to judge.
Tomato soup.
There are 14 varieties of tomato soup available from this replicator.
I would ask why the replicator doesn't always do this, but my guess is this is why we always see them ordering some special recipe like Neelix number 1 or nutritional supplement number 72. You get tired of how pedantic the replicator was and just make some presets for yourself. Also, the Doctor and First Officer really hate Tom for some reason. I'm really looking forward to seeing that developed over the series.
There, you see? I told you it wouldn't take long.
What are you talking about, Tom? You literally said it was a long story.
Is it true?
Was the accident my fault? Yes. Pilot error.
Oh, you mean it wouldn't be long for someone to tell him the story. Something we'll now reveal in under...
They said you falsified reports.
That's right.
Why?
What's the difference? I lied.
But then you came forward and you admitted that it was your fault?
All I had to do was keep my mouth shut and I was home free. But I couldn't, so I confessed. Worst mistake I ever made, but not my last.
1 minute. Even with Harry Kim asking questions, this is a pretty short, long story. But I said we'd talk about Nicholas Lucano later, and here it is. Let's do this. Back in TNG Season 5, we were introduced to the character of Nicholas Lucano, the leader of Nova Squad. He pushed his team of 5, including Wesley Crusher, to do a dangerous maneuver that got one of their members, some kid named Josh, killed. He got everyone to lie about and cover it up, but eventually Picard figured it out and Wesley confessed to everything. Afterwards, Lucano took full blame and was expelled. Tom Paris was modeled extensively after Nicholas, and both were played by the same actor. Apparently, everyone felt Nicholas was too irredeemable, so they made Tom, who had almost an identical story. Robert McNeil has stated several times that he felt Tom and Nicholas were mirror opposites of each other. That Nicholas acted good on the outside but was rotten to the core, while Tom acted bad but was good on the inside. Personally, I think they should have just had him reprise his original role. Nicholas didn't feel rotten to the core to me. He felt like an entitled young man who thought he could get away with something really bad. A lot of people have been there and learned things the hard way just to turn their lives around.
I know those guys told you to stay away from me, and you know what? You ought to listen.
I don't need anyone to choose my friends for me.
Harry Kim is the best. Also, apparently this was the first scene ever shot for Star Trek Voyager.
The Cardassians gave us the last known heading of the Maquis ship, and we have charts of the plasma storm activity the day it disappeared.
There's no way pulsating white circles convey any sort of useful information. Who designed this thing?
The plasma storm might not leave any debris.
We'd still be able to pick up a resonance trace from the warp core.
If I'm going to complain about the fantasy, I have to praise the reality. Resonance traces are real. Kind of. In nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, after analyzing the data, there is a trace or indication of a resonance signal. It is completely believable that the explosion of a warp core could leave enough background radiation to get a resonance trace that could even be used to identify the type of ship it came from.
There's also a displacement wave moving toward us.
We might be able to disperse it with a graviton particle field.
Do it.
I guess it makes sense that if they can create gravity on a starship, they could make gravity fields wherever they wanted them. Don't know how making a random field of gravity was supposed to disrupt anything, though. If he knew his history, maybe he could have known that the correct answer was...
We could attempt to use our own warp engines to generate an inverse resonance wave.
Oh shoot, I forgot about Data and Geordi on my bromance list.
The wave will intercept us in 12 seconds.
For once, Harry Kim's prediction of how long it will take is 100% correct. Exactly 12 seconds later, Voyager gets hit. Well done. Dang, Voyager got wrecked. I bet it takes them half the season to get all that damage repaired. Oh no, the first officer got killed. I liked him so much from that one scene when he was a jerk, and that other one scene where he was wrong about disrupting the field. I sure will miss, I think his name started with a J?
Bridge to sickbay. Doctor, can you hear me?
I just realized that you never hear the name of the original Doctor. They just called him Doctor.
Harris, how's Daddy?
She's dead.
Alright, the female Vulcan, the helmsman, the first officer, and the Doctor. That's 4 people dead already.
Engineering to bridge. We have severe damage. The chief's dead.
5 people dead. They're dropping like flies! I would have complained if her hair had magically been fixed between shots, but since they included this moment of her fixing her hair, I'm going to complain that she takes the time to fix it while she walks. I'm a fan! You can't win!
What's the warp core pressure?
2,100 kilopascals.
2,100 kilopascals? Well, that does sound a lot more impressive than 304 psi.
Status of your doctor?
He's dead.
We lost our nurse, too.
Robert Picardo is a treasure. Everything about him he perfectly nails in this first scene. He has no bedside manners, he's arrogant, he assumes that everyone is here to help him despite the current situation everyone is obviously in. He's impatient because he's being mildly inconvenienced instead of getting what he needs himself. He's serious, he's funny. I don't know if any other character has so perfectly encapsulated who their character would be in all of Star Trek better than Picardo did with the Doctor on the very first day. In fact, allegedly, the thing that got Robert Picardo the job is that he was supposed to say the line, "Somebody forgot to turn off my program." But after he did so, he ad-libbed, "I'm a doctor, not a light bulb." And that is what sealed the deal.
Pressure.
It's working. 2,500 kilopascals and holding.
Oh, thank goodness. It's back up to 362 PSI. We're saved.
Janeway to bridge. Respond. Initiate emergency lock-off.
You may think this is coincidental timing since they were beamed away as soon as the ship was out of danger, but I think this was a conscious choice from the Caretaker. He didn't want a ship blowing up next to him, so as soon as things were safe, he brought them over.
Oh, you poor things, you must be tired out.
Oh crap, it's the Southerner! Quick, hide Tuvak!
Let's have some music!
Do you know they released an album with the music from this episode? It's 13 tracks long, and the last one is called The Caretaker's Hoedown. They made a 2.5-minute long song for 45 seconds of airtime.
The crew's scattered around this farm, Captain, but they're all accounted for.
All accounted except for the 6 dead ones, right, Tom? Tom? Right?
Oh, we don't mean you any harm. I'm sorry if we've put you out. Why don't you just put your feet up and get comfortable while you wait?
Why would the Caretaker say this? He's kidnapped thousands of species by this point. He knows a statement like this would needlessly freak people out.
Paris, she's only a hologram.
No reason to be rude.
Tom Paris was a holographic ally before anyone else.
Paris to Janeway.
Yeah, girl power! Janeway looks mildly put out from this needle. They did not do enough with Garrett Wang. He's scared, he's in pain, I believe it. So Voyager arrived in the Delta Quadrant, had just enough time to fix a warp core issue, and then everyone was whisked away for 3 days. When they left, there was smoke filling the sickbay, but now sickbay is clean and the bridge has been fully repaired? Well, at least engineering still has some debris in it.
It's good to have you back, Mr. Tuvak.
I must inform you that I was assigned to infiltrate your crew, sir.
I'm not sure if immediately blowing your spy's cover was a smart move there, Janeway. Maybe gather some more intelligence before exposing him? I mean, what if she needed to spy on his ship later on?
It's good to see you too, Chakotay.
At least the Vulcan was doing his duty as a Starfleet officer, but you betrayed us for what? Freedom from prison? Latinum?
Wow, Chakotay is pretty upset for being betrayed by a guy he knew for part of a single mission. I would think he'd be like, who the heck are you again? Still, Chakotay really hates Tom for some reason. I really look forward to seeing that developed over the series.
You are speaking to a member of my crew. I expect you to treat him with the same respect as you would have me treat a member of yours.
Well, I guess we know who wears the pants in this relationship.
I would suggest he scanned our computers in order to select a comfortable holographic environment. In effect, a waiting room. It is the most logical explanation.
Is it? Is it really? How is that the most logical explanation? He's right, of course, but I would just assume that he ate sentient life forms and took a sample to find and keep the tastiest for a breeding pool. Shut your face, Tuvak Holmes.
Captain, I'd like to go with you.
If this has something to do with what Chakotay...
It doesn't. I'd hate to see anything happen to Harry.
It's guy love, that's all it is.
There are no humanoid life forms indicated, Captain.
Everyone knows that putting your hands on your hips makes you listen to that person more intensely.
Oh, well, aren't you contentious for a minor bipedal species?
Oh, look out, Caretaker. She put her hands on her hips. You know she's serious now.
Oh, why have you come back? You don't have what I need.
I don't think the Caretaker is really talking to them during this scene. It's like when you're trying to solve a problem and your 5-year-old keeps coming up and starts asking you questions. You might be half responding to them, but really you're just talking to yourself trying to solve the problem until you tell them to bounce. Yeah, girl power! That mask is pointless if your nose isn't covered.
Captain, I've observed something peculiar about the pulses. They're getting faster. The interval between each pulse has decreased by 0.47 seconds since we arrived.
Is that interesting, Tuvok? You've been recording things for less than a day, and you're already acting like you know how things are supposed to work? 0.47 seconds is hardly a deviation that would have been worth reporting, right? Also, this is the first of many references to the number 47. This show can be traced back to the writer Joe Menosky, who attended some college in California that claims they have proof that all numbers are equal to the number 47. In fact, allegedly, Rick Burnham once joked that 47 is 42, just corrected for inflation.
It's virtually a desert. Not one ocean, not one river. It has all the basic characteristics of an M-class planet, except there are no nucleogenic particles in the atmosphere.
Nucleogenic particles, or isotopes, are produced by natural terrestrial nuclear reaction, and examples would be Neon-21, which has nothing to do with creating rain. I know the internet wasn't as big in 1994 when the script would have been written, but they could have done a little research. Or they could have left it as, it has all the signs of an M-class planet, but it's a desert. What happened? Who cares? Let's leave some mystery in here if we can't think of a scientific reason. I'll come back to this later. Whoa, Tuvok started off as a lieutenant commander? He must have done something seriously bad to get dropped in rank later on in this season.
I did not have the opportunity to meet Mr. Kim.
I barely knew him. I never seemed to have the chance to get to know any of them. I have to take more time to do that.
This line doesn't belong in the episode at all. She's barely had time to take command of Voyager, her first ship as a captain. Why act like she's been failing to take time to learn the crew? Give me half a season at least before you try and drop this kind of emotional commentary.
I spoke to your family before I left. I'll get you back to them. That's a promise, Tuvok.
But then they followed up with this conversation between Tuvok and Janeway about his family, and I believe the emotion behind it. Janeway has been friends with Tuvok for a long time and cares about him. It's a small exchange that tells us a lot about her character. More of this kind of writing, please. Now, when it originally aired, episode 1 and 2 were aired together, but these are technically 2 episodes, which is why I think they put this scene here. They needed something to end an episode on, and this was deemed acceptable. But honestly, it doesn't make sense. Just imagine that scene followed by the credits. Wait, you don't have to imagine anything. I can just do it for you.
I'll get you back to them. That's a promise, Tuvok.
See? That was abrupt and jarring. I know what they were trying to do, having the show start with the Maquis ship being drugged to the Delta Quadrant and ending with Janeway promising Tuvok to get them all home, but the rest of the story beats just don't follow for this to be the first part of a 2-parter. But I have to stop here. This is already long enough. Shoutouts to my supporters on Subscribestar and Patreon, which according to my notes is John DeMarco. If you like this and you want to help me make more of them, you can join John by searching for Life with Matthew on Patreon or Subscribestar, or just click on the links in the description of the video. Be sure to subscribe for more, and until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.